I'd like to actually go through some of my images and some of the experiences that you might encounter on our trips up to Svalbard in the spring, particularly in May into June. I'll be on 2 expeditions with Secret Atlas, but I thought I'd tell you some stories and go through some images to give you kind of a feel about what you might experience. What I'd like to first talk about is the onboard lecture portion of your tour. Here is me up on the MV Freya in October, teaching a segment on photographing the Northern Lights. But on the Svalbard trips in the spring, we'll do different instructional presentations regarding polar photography, wildlife photography, landscapes, and a number of other things. 2 is just a picture of me on board the MV Freya, photographing some ice floes, and I will be accessible on board the ship. There's the MV Freya and the Viking Fjord, and the ship decks themselves have a lot of space, and having only 12 guests on an Arctic cruise, particularly up in the Svalbard, is excellent. I will be available to do some more one-on-one tutorials with each of you should you join us in May. 3 is a polar bear that I captured on an ice floe. Now, polar bears are rare to see. There are quite a few up in the Svalbard area, and that's one of our objectives in May on our 2 Svalbard cruises. And this is one that I captured in October. And you'll notice on this one that polar bears are not actually pure white. Their quills, or their hair, I guess is what you call it, is actually brownish in color. And we were able to identify this particular polar bear on the ice floe because of the contrast between the brownish areas on his coat and the white of the bright white of the snow. One of the things that we hope to see up in Svalbard in May is the walrus. Now you can see them on an ice floe as I captured here, or you can see them in a colony. They're quite spectacular, not only by size, but the obvious tusks that come out. They're very photogenic, and we hope to spend quite a bit of time up in May looking for these guys and taking some photos of them. This is a picture of a bearded seal that you find only up in the Arctic area. Very, very cute guy. They're very playful. This particular image was photographed from a Zodiac. One of the things I love as part of our Svalbard micro cruises is the ability to maneuver around undetected at a safe distance different wildlife and get eye-level pictures like we did of this bearded seal up in Svalbard on this particular ice floe. One of the amazing things is you don't know what you're going to encounter. On this particular day, this Arctic fox was actually up at the top of a mountain range. Could have been a juvenile, we're not sure, but it was very curious. We watched as he traversed down the mountain range to us. We landed at a safe distance, and for a time, this little guy was rolling around and playing with us, kind of like your dog at your house. But the light was beautiful. The light up in the Arctic is golden for a large part of the day, and you can get some great images like this, and we'll teach you compositionally how to capture some of these things. But another point is that you definitely want to bring a long lens so you can get in tight on some of these animals. Another thing that I love to photograph up in Svalbard, particularly in the spring, is when the ice starts to melt. You get ice waterfalls coming off the side of the glaciers. We'll be able to maneuver the ship or the Zodiacs within a safe distance to take different compositions. If we're on the ship, we can slow the shutter down and even get that milky kind of soft look on the waterfall as it comes out of the side or one of the striations. And again, you can see how the light is. This light is just absolutely magnificent during this time of year as you have the transition through the springtime into summer. This particular image is an example of one of the things I love to teach on board, and that I'll be teaching on board in Svalbard in May, is how to do a panoramic stitched photo. This particular photo was taken with, I think it was between 5 or 6 photos at single shots in a vertical format, and then it's quite easy to put it into Lightroom and stitch them all together. Now, the reason I like to do this with a telephoto lens is you get that more of a depth, you get a more of a tight shot, you get more of detail across the entire panoramic image. If you would have taken that with a wider angle lens, the ice and everything would be less dramatic and very tiny. Here's an image that I threw in here to talk about the Northern Lights. Now, you won't see the Northern Lights on the Svalbard trips in May and into the summer because it's the summer and you need darkness in order to see the Northern Lights. But Secret Atlas also offers other fall trips. I was on this particular fall trip up to Greenland, and if the Northern Lights are what you're looking for, that's an amazing place to see the Northern Lights. This one is what I call you can call it a macro landscape or an intimate landscape. The objective of this particular image is to fill the frame and to see the different textures and the different patterns that you can across the frame-to-frame image. Really makes for a nice composition. It might get you to think a little bit different about what you're looking at. So we do work on composition. That's one of the things I teach about, and one of the things that we also work on in the field as well. Here's an example of the ship that I'll be on in May and into June with Secret Atlas. This is the MV Viking Fjord. You can see here the embarkation or disembarkation of the Zodiacs. But what you're going to notice here is how many people are here. Not that many. And the reason is that we limit our cruises to, micro cruises, to 12 people. You're never going to have a Zodiac that's going to be more than 5 people in it. And you're never going to have one that has 10 to 12 people in it. You're going to not be able to take shots if you're in that kind of environment. You're going to have a lot of heads in there. What we like to do is have a lot less crowded Zodiacs. We have a smaller, more intimate environment, and everyone works together to enjoy the experience and also to get the shot. You'll also notice on the Viking Fjord here that we have multiple different deck plans. You can go as high as the top up by the bridge, or as low on the side rail there to get different compositions and different angles of things that we may see along the way. Once again, here's a typical Zodiac ride. There's 6 people in the Zodiac and 2 polar guides, it looks like. And you can see that you have plenty of room in the Zodiac. You're not crowded. We all work together to get the shot and to enjoy the experience, which is very different than a lot of other operations. Another example of a small, intimate environment on the Zodiac cruise. Look, we can even turn our engines off and paddle right up to the edge of a piece of ice like this and just enjoy the sound of silence, pure silence that you get up in the Arctic. Other things we can do with a micro cruise is with the small groups, we have accessibility and flexibility. This particular image shows us landing on a large piece of ice, a pancake ice or a pack ice. And you get an experience that you wouldn't get in a larger environment by walking around on a piece of floating ice up in Svalbard and up in the Arctic. It's pretty cool. This is the Viking Fjord again, the ship that I will be on in May into June of 2026. She's a beautiful vessel. This is her from a drone. Drones can be flown by the crew and people that are under permit, not by guests, unfortunately. But if we capture something like this, we certainly share it at the end of the trip. But this is a good example of the different deck areas that you can shoot from as we traverse through the Svalbard area. The MV Viking Fjord and the MV Freya are ice-class ships, which gives us more flexibility and to get into areas that larger ships cannot, and the accessibility to get better images, better compositions, more interesting compositions, and things that you typically wouldn't get on a larger expedition. And that's the bow that you're looking at, cracking through a little bit of ice, going towards that glacier up there in Svalbard. So a couple pictures of the interior of the Viking Fjord. She just was redone and refitted a few years back, I believe. Gorgeous ship. I mean, it's Scandinavian wood. You have a very bright environment in there. It's very homey. It's very comfortable. This is the little lounge area where you can set up your computer. We can do some editing one-on-one and a number of other things too. And you can watch the beautiful landscape of Svalbard pass you by out these nice big windows on the side. It really does have a lot of light on this beautiful ship. Here is basically a standard twin kind of bunk bed style, but look at the room that you have in there and the storage underneath the bed. You can put all of your winter gear under there, your camera gear. It's a very cozy environment, and you won't find too many ships that have this kind of light in the cabins themselves. Some of them have portholes, other of them have windows, but not this big. I mean, this is, you're watching Svalbard go by as you drift off to sleep at night. It's a really, really comfortable environment. Here's one that's another twin that you can share, just a different configuration. 2 double beds that are side by side instead of the bunk bed style. There's a bunch of different configurations on the MV Viking Fjord, and you just can choose one that's more suitable to your needs or your comfort level. Of course, the hot tub on the MV Viking Fjord. You can sit back, have some drinks, cocktails, enjoy yourself, soda, coffee, whatever you drink, and enjoy Svalbard passing you by while you're taking a wonderful hot tub. I like to try to sneak in there as much as possible when no one's looking. So I put this final slide in here to kind of sum everything up. In a small micro cruise environment that you have with Secret Atlas, you have 12 guests. You have the crew and the expedition team all eating together, telling stories. You come on to the ship as a guest, but you leave as part of the Secret Atlas family. And I mean that sincerely. I keep in touch with a lot of the guests, even from as recent as my last voyage. We talk photography. I'm always available to answer questions, look at some of your images. We all really become a family, and at the end of the day, we all keep in touch, and it's something you're not going to get in a lot of other operations. Thanks, and have a great day.